All right, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over all of the manual triggers or all the triggers that you can have within an n8n workflow. These are particularly important because these are what start every single workflow that you have in your instance. And so it's good to go over all of them to even see what's possible. A lot of these, whenever I was going through, I hadn't even really noticed that they were there until I started really diving deep into all that is, possible within n8n and all that you can do, being able to trigger things for your workflows. So we're going to jump right in, kind of talk about each one, show a couple use cases, and then we can kind of all have a video where I dive deeper into each one. But for now, we'll just kind of get a high overview just to expose you to what is possible when it comes to triggers in n8n. Let's get right to it. Okay, the very first one is this manual trigger. This obviously, like it sounds, is very useful for whenever you're testing data, okay? Or whenever you just want to run a workflow manually, let's say that it is dependent upon being executed by another workflow or even a webhook, potentially. We'll get into those in a second, but this one's really nice because you can just run it right off the bat, okay? So we can watch it in action. Let's say we're having a data table and we want to just get all the rows from my test table right here. We're going to return all, and we're going to have right there, okay? So, and then once we have it, we're just going to show this kind of in progress, and then we're going to have we'll have a set node right here. We'll set some things. So first thing, you come over here, you can click it, and you can see it actually running. Look at that great animation on the wait, and then it'll eventually get there. Okay, so this trigger, all it does is it allows you to manually execute it, and you're done. All right, moving on to when executed by another workflow. Really neat thing about this is it allows you to basically, in programming, there's a concept called dry, do not repeat yourself, or don't repeat yourself. And this allows you to basically have workflows that do the exact same thing every single time without fail. Let's say you have a workflow that always runs a certain calculation, okay? You want to be able to have a reliable workflow that works every single time. You also want to be able to have it expect certain inputs. So what this will allow you to do is input data mode, define using fields below. You can actually come in here and add fields, and they can be different types. You expect it to be a string or a number or a Boolean or an array, etc. Okay, this is really cool because it will allow you to also make your workflows not as complex or as large. You can break them out into bite-sized chunks, and you can also have it where you can define the fields. You can define it using a JSON example below, and you can also just have it accept everything. All right, so very powerful. I'll go into a couple more examples of this in a later video, but for now, just know whenever you want to have a workflow call another workflow, you can have it, make it right here. So we can come over here and we can do call execute sub workflow, execute sub workflow. And I don't think this will actually pop up. What's this one called? Intro? Yeah, intro to n8n. It's because must be published. So if this were to be published, then we can have that trigger be an option for us to execute. Okay, this one is actually a new one that I discovered whenever I was working with this. So this trigger is actually an n8n trigger, and you can have different events that will watch. So, workflow published triggers when workflow version is published from an unpublished state. So for example, if I come over here and if I were to click this publish, then this would get triggered. It would trigger it and you could pull it in. So, I mean, a use case for this is if we're not on the enterprise version of n8n, and you publish something, we could store that publish to GitHub or save it as a version control somewhere, right? That's one use case. Or, just anytime that you do something on your n8n, we can have that be a trigger. Publish workflow updated or instance started. All right. So now that instance started one's kind of interesting because if the n8n instance is started, it could run a backup or it could run a restore function, whatever it might be. Or if it gets started, it can send you a message, hey, I'm healthy and ready to go. So this is a cool trigger because whenever you're working with your n8n, it will actually help you receive notifications or events when you're actually doing stuff with your n8n instance. All right, the webhook trigger, this one is huge. I use this all of the time. So basically a webhook is also synonymous with, in this case, an API endpoint, okay? An application programmable interface that will allow you to open up your workflows to outside sources. So let's say I'm building an application, I'm building a software, and I want to be able to create a workflow on n8n. This software has to somehow communicate with my n8n. And what this allows me to do is it opens up basically essentially a door that will allow my software over here on this server to communicate with my n8n workflows over here. That allows me to access a chat app or access to email filtration or some sort of workflow that I already have built. I can basically have it be an endpoint to where it can receive data in a structured format. And I can break this down a lot better. And I'll break this down in my GhostCoder Plus community where we go down the rabbit hole of each individual node, and it will allow us to really understand the nitty gritty of each piece. But for purposes of this, like I said, this webhook will allow you to open up one over here, response immediately, and let's do response data. We say this was successful. Okay, so with this webhook, I'll show you an example. It says get, so if it is production URL, we can take this, put it up here, enter, fire away. And just like that, it will return whatever we have it return. So again, this is a discussion for the GhostCoder Plus community where I go deep into the webhook and deep into these nodes of what is possible. But for this instance, just know that this trigger, you can basically open up your webhook, open up your instance to other applications, to other people, and be able to receive the data. You can have them send you data, and there's a lot of things you can do with these webhooks. Very, very powerful part of the program. Basically, you can make your interface, your instance of n8n be communicated from other people. And that is the power of the webhook trick. All right, the next one that we're going to be talking about is the chat message received. This is going to be the one whenever you're dealing with AI agents. This chat message, basically, it sounds exactly what it is. It allows you to communicate via a chat widget and talk with your workflow. So that is what this one primarily is purposed for. Okay, this next one is very interesting because I didn't know that this one existed until I started looking at all of this. So this is a manually creating an MCP server. So do note that this has since been rendered not as useful since the new instance level MCP update that has come out in V2. So if you come over here, you can, actually I think it's in settings. If you come over in settings, you can look right there. Yeah, instance level MCP. So basically what was before is you could come over here, and again, it's kind of like a webhook, but you can add certain tools to this MCP. And if a AI agent, if you hooked it up to MCP compatible like Claude Desktop, it could then read and list the tools that are available, which these tools could have been workflows, a code node, HTTPS requests. Like there could have been a ton of different things that you could have hooked up to this to where if it pinged that, it could have gotten a list of the tools and then it could choose accordingly, like send an email, like your Claude Desktop could send an email with this MCP. And this is how these MCP servers were created on n8n before they allowed you to actually make your instance an MCP server and allow given workflows to be rendered as listed for that MCP. So kind of rendered useless unless you wanted to kind of continue keeping it more on a workflow level. Now you can make it on your instance, but still a really cool trigger nonetheless. All right, now to the trigger node. This one is hands down one of the most useful. Let's say you want a workflow to run every day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or every week, or every month, or every year. This trigger allows you to do that. It allows you to pick what iteration you want it to run, and it will run on that cadence, and then it will allow you to have your workflow ran on a consistent schedule. This one is definitely not as well known, but when you come over here on every workflow, you can actually come into the settings and error workflow to notify when this one errors. So let's say at any given moment, I have a big workflow and it errors out. You could create, a catch, and you can create a whole custom flow for it to be able to capture that error and send it to you. Or on any failure, it will actually bundle that up and send it to any workflow that has this error trigger on it. And then it will receive the error with all the high level overview of like what workflow did this come from, what was the exact error. And it basically makes it a little bit easier for you to, at any level, just have an error catch on all your workflows so that when something bugs out, you can be notified immediately, or you can do some sort of process that you want with that. Okay, now for this trigger, this SSE trigger, again, one of the new ones that I did not even knew existed on n8n, but a very powerful tool nonetheless. So this SSE trigger is a lot like the webhook trigger, except it's in reverse. The n8n instance, in this case, is essentially hooking up a live line to some information like stocks or some other market watching API that it is streaming data or consistently sending data. It's way more efficient because it'll just constantly be sending you updates, and this can capture all of those updates in real time, no matter what is happening. Because otherwise, our system would have to have like a trigger that every minute or every 2 minutes or 30 minutes will go and ask for that information and it'll update it at that time or at that cadence. But this is live. The moment you hook it up to the endpoint of the website that's sending that data, it will receive it, stream it, and then you can process it, put it into a database. However often that other application will send you data, this SSE trigger will receive it and then do whatever you want with it. So never used it before, but looks like a really awesome application for, financial information, weather even. There's a lot of really cool things that I can already think of when it comes to this SSE trigger. Go check it out because it seems like it's a pretty cool one. Okay, the form submission trigger, this one again is one of the most powerful ones that you can use. This will allow you to create a form off the cuff. So if we go over here and execute the step, it basically generates a form for you. And whenever you have it in production, you can paste this URL and it will actually just be a form that people can go through and submit. I use this all the time for wait lists, for signups, for any other thing that I need a form for. This is what I use because you can build custom forms off the cuff and then basically inject them straight into your n8n instance. There's also a lot of cool things you can do with it, like customizing the form and a lot of other different customization that, again, I'll go to for the GhostCoder Plus community. If you're interested, you can join the waitlist below. It's a community where I not only show you what's possible and kind of give you the high overview, we dive deep into these nodes, deep into everything that we're doing, deep into workflows so that you can really understand the power of n8n, how you can build, sell, and maintain AI automations in an agency or as a freelancer. And finally, the last trigger that is built into n8n is this evaluations fetch trigger. So if you come over to evaluations, you can run these evaluations and it'll set these when fetching data set, it'll fetch data and it will run it through your workflow to ensure that it is healthy, that it maintains its integrity. So let's say you're building a workflow, you're working on it, and you've just implemented a lot of changes. Now you need to see if your data if all these evaluations will run smoothly. Basically, it's a way to test your workflows to make sure that something that you implemented didn't break what you had before. And so this will be whenever you run these evaluations. So you notice how you have to do a couple of things to set this up. Once you have it set up properly, this node will allow you to essentially pull data from a given data, or even this one says you can do a Google Sheet. You can pull data in as if that's what it was expecting, run it through as a test set to see if everything works smoothly, and ensure that your systems are always healthy and properly set up. All right, and there you have it. Wow, that was a lot, but this is something that's really important because these triggers are everything when it comes to testing, debugging, and actually running and building, production level and automations. So this isn't all of the triggers. These are all the triggers that are baked directly into n8n and are native. They're not triggers that come from other places like Google Sheets or Slack or Gmail. Those are some things that we could talk about later. But in this video, we just went over all of the triggers that come out of the box for your n8n instance and will help you be able to build, scale, and maintain AI automations in your agency or as a freelance or within your company. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, as I am talking everything AI and n8n for AI automation and workflow automation as well. And if you're interested in learning how to build, sell, and maintain AI automations for actual value for companies, you with your own company, as an agency, freelance, go ahead and join my GhostCoded Plus waitlist, and I can get you signed up for an opportunity to learn more from me and get deeper into the nitty-gritty of these nodes, of these automations that I'm building to help you be able to actually provide real value and make money out in the real world. Okay, thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next